What do you know about quality, you street hawker? Back in London, my family's casual dinner costs more than you earn in a month. The words, sharp and laced with a disgust that bordered on performance, hung heavy in the humid Singaporean air, cutting through the general din of Newton Food Centre. Anderson, 25, dressed in limited edition sneakers and sporting a watch that likely cost more than the stall owner's entire setup, stood imperiously, gesturing wildly. The hawker, a man in his 50s, his work apron stained with years of honest labor, simply wore a wry, almost amused expression. No panic, no anger, just a quiet, knowing gaze. Anderson had grown up in Kensington, one of London's most exclusive boroughs, chauffeured in imported sports cars, his family home a penthouse overlooking the Thames. This trip to Singapore was meant to be a carefully curated cultural tour with university friends, largely revolving around Michelin-starred establishments and exclusive rooftop bars. It was his friend, Xiao Jie, a Singaporean he'd met studying at King's College London, who'd insisted on this detour, this authentic local experience. Anderson had reluctantly agreed, his eyebrows practically glued in a perpetual frown since they'd stepped foot into the open-air food haven. The pervasive smell of oil, the damp patches on the floor, the cramped, bustling stalls. It was a stark, almost offensive contrast to the immaculate, air-conditioned fine dining restaurants he was accustomed to back in London. He'd privately scoffed, wondering how anything truly good could emerge from such an unhygienic environment. Did Singaporeans genuinely enjoy eating in places like this? Anderson, come quickly, you must try this oyster omelette, it's super good, la, Xiao Jie called, beckoning from a stall. Anderson walked over, eyeing the sizzling, unfamiliar mixture of oysters, eggs, and greens on the griddle. The hawker, the uncle now calmly attending to a new order, moved with a practiced ease that spoke of decades. He passed a freshly cooked plate to Xiao Jie, a warm smile on his face. Anderson wrinkled his nose. Seriously, Xiao Jie, how can you guarantee hygiene at a roadside stall like this? Aren't you Singaporeans worried about getting food poisoning? Xiao Jie just laughed, a genuine, unconcerned sound. Ayo, you don't understand, Anderson. Singaporean hawkers are all licensed and regularly inspected. And this stall? Super famous. Been here over 20 years already. 20 years? Anderson retorted, a sneer twisting his lips. And still a hawker stall? What does that tell you? No ambition to open a proper restaurant? My family's restaurants in London are all impeccably designed, air-conditioned, comfortable seating. Why would customers stand around eating? The hawker paused for a fraction of a second, his spatula hovering mid-air, but his smile remained unchanged as he resumed cooking. Nearby, a couple of regulars, middle-aged men nursing bottles of tiger beer, had clearly overheard. "Young man, don't talk so big," one of them grumbled, not unkindly. "Do you know how much this stall makes in a day?" Anderson scoffed again, the arrogance palpable. "How much? A few £100, tops, I suppose. My dad's company in London makes over £1 million a day." The hawker finally spoke, his voice calm and even. "Young man, I'm not here to lecture you, but you truly don't understand Singaporean hawker culture. This little stall might not look impressive, but my monthly income might surprise you. Very much, in fact." "How much?" Anderson challenged, a smirk playing on his lips. "I bet you make £5,000 a month. That's already damn good for a hawker, right?" A few patrons chuckled. The hawker, too, let out a soft laugh. 5,000, young man? Just yesterday alone, my revenue was over 5,000. And that's just revenue, mind you, not even profit. Anderson froze, visibly taken aback. But the surprise quickly gave way to his usual dismissive air. "Revenue isn't profit. After costs. What's left?" The hawker set down his spatula, turning to face Anderson fully. His gaze was steady, experienced. "Put it this way. This stall, in a good year, brings in maybe £130,000 to £170,000 in net income. You can do the math in pounds." A sudden, uncomfortable silence descended. Anderson's mind raced, quickly converting the figures. £130,000 to £170,000. That was a respectable income, even for many professionals in London. It certainly wasn't the paltry sum he'd imagined. Yet, he stubbornly held his ground. "That's just average in London. My dad makes way more than that in a year." "Oh, really?" the hawker replied, a knowing glint in his eye. "And how many employees does your father's company have? How much capital did he invest? How many sleepless nights does he spend, worrying about countless problems every single day?" The questions hit Anderson like a physical blow. His father's company employed dozens, maybe hundreds. The initial investment had been astronomical, the daily stresses endless. This hawker, however, worked largely alone, or perhaps with a family member or two. His overheads were minimal, his responsibilities relatively contained. He suddenly felt a prickle of unease. "Anderson, you don't know, right?" Xiao Jie chimed in, sensing the shift in dynamics. Many Singaporean hawkers actually earn serious money. No sky-high shop rents, very few staff to pay. When business is good, they can make tens of thousands in revenue in a day. The profit margins are crazy high. And, what's more, an elderly hawker, an auntie selling royak next door, joined in. "Our capital investment is low, and returns are fast. You want to open a fancy restaurant? Millions for renovation, equipment, staff. Monthly fixed expenses are terrifying. Us, a pushcart, some equipment, 50,000 quid, and you can start business." Anderson was beginning to waver. He thought of his father's constant complaints about the cutthroat competition, the spiraling labor costs, the astronomical rent prices in London. These hawkers, though seemingly working hard, appeared to be free from such suffocating worries. Still, his pride wouldn't let him back down completely. "But you stand here all day, exposed to the elements. What kind of quality of life is that?" The hawker chuckled, a deep, resonant sound. "Young man, you think sitting in an air-conditioned office is quality of life? Let me tell you, I come here at 4 p.m., pack up at 11 p.m. 7 hours a day, that's it. The rest of the time, I'm free. I sleep in, I go wherever I want. My daughter is studying abroad. I pay her fees and living expenses. I travel overseas 2-3 times a year. You still think my quality of life is bad?" Anderson was truly stunned. He thought of his own father, waking at 7 a.m., rarely home before 10 p.m., often working weekends, constantly stressed. He earned a fortune, yes, but had no time to enjoy it. The uncomfortable truth began to surface. Perhaps his definition of success, handed down by his privileged upbringing, was profoundly limited. "And you know what, Anderson?" Xiao Jie added, a newfound passion in his voice. "Singapore's hawker culture is unique, man. It's our soft power. Tourists come to Singapore, they must come to the hawker centers, right? These hawkers aren't just doing business, they're preserving and passing on Singapore's food heritage. For many foreigners, their most memorable impression of Singapore is the hawker scene." Anderson fell silent, his mind replaying his days in Singapore. The luxurious hotels, while impressive, had felt sterile, impersonal. But here, amidst the chaos and the smells, there was an undeniable vibrancy, a pulse of life. Laughter, shouts of hawkers, the rich aromas of food, it all wove together into something uniquely alive. "You know why Singapore's hawker centers are so vibrant?" The hawker continued, deftly flipping an omelette while he spoke. "Because Singaporeans value not just food but human connection, la. We don't just sell food, we sell a way of life, a culture. Look around, many of these customers are regulars. Some have been eating here since they were kids, now bringing their own children. This kind of connection, you won't find it in your high-end London restaurants." Anderson looked around. Indeed, many customers were chatting animatedly with the hawkers, like old friends. It was a warmth, an easy familiarity that was distinctly absent from the sterile, formal dining rooms of London. "Let me break down the numbers for you," the hawker said, leaning in slightly. "This oyster omelette, it sells for 7 quid. My cost is about 250, so a gross profit of 450. On average, I sell 200 plates a day. That's a daily revenue of 1,400 quid. Minus costs, gross profit is 900 quid. Deduct cart rental, gas, electricity. My net profit for the day is about 700 to 800 quid. I work 25 days a month. You tell me, how much do I earn?" Anderson did the mental arithmetic. A monthly net income of £17,500 to £20,000. Annually, that was indeed well over £200,000. And if business was better, £300,000 to £400,000 was entirely plausible. This was far more than many office workers in London or even Singapore could ever hope to earn. "Most importantly," the hawker continued, his voice firm, "this money goes straight into my pocket. No boss to share it with, no one to answer to, no worries about being retrenched. What do you say?" Around them, heads nodded in agreement. It was then that Anderson truly grasped the depth of his misjudgment. He had always viewed Singapore as a smaller, perhaps less developed economy than England, its people likely struggling. But now, he saw a different reality. Singapore had its own unique rhythm of life, and many were thriving beyond his narrow, preconceived notions. And what's more, Auntie added, many of us Singaporean hawkers are actually hidden millionaires. You see the old man selling laksa over there? He drives an imported SUV, lives in a £1 million terraced house. And that chicken rice hawker, Ming, he owns 3 properties in Singapore, all earned from selling chicken rice. Xiao Jie grinned. Exactly. There's a saying here, make a fortune quietly. Many people look ordinary, but their assets are mind-blowing. Unlike some people who look glamorous on the surface, but are probably still paying off their mortgages, right? The remark landed with brutal accuracy, striking Anderson squarely. He drove a flashy car, wore expensive brands, but these were gifts, symbols of his family's wealth. He, Anderson, had no substantial assets of his own. He also knew, uncomfortably, that his father's company, while outwardly grand, carried significant debt, and the pressure was immense. "Young man, I'm not trying to preach," the hawker said, his tone softening. "But I want to tell you, don't judge a person by their appearance, and don't use your own standards to measure other people's lives. Singapore's hawker culture, it's something we've built over decades. Every hawker has their own story, their own journey. We might not have fancy shops, but we have real skill, real craft, and heart for our customers." Anderson looked down, his arrogance thoroughly dismantled, replaced by a profound sense of shame. His earlier words now sounded hollow, ignorant, even childish. "Here," the hawker said, a warm smile returning, "my treat. Try a plate of oyster omelette. Let you taste real Singaporean flavor. No charge, just making a friend." Anderson took the hot plate, the smell of fresh oysters and eggs intoxicating. He took a bite. The succulent oysters, the tender egg, the unique chili sauce, a burst of flavors he'd never experienced. It wasn't the meticulously plated, artfully arranged dishes of fine dining. It was raw, honest, vibrant street food, brimming with life. "Good, right?" the hawker asked, beaming. Anderson could only nod, his mouth full, unable to speak. He suddenly understood. He understood why people queued. He understood why this culture drew tourists from around the world. It wasn't just food. It was a testament to a way of life, a passion for living. "You know what else, Anderson?" Xiao Jie continued. "Many Singaporean hawkers start from scratch, with nothing. No family inheritance, no connections. They just rely on their own hard work, building it up piece by piece. That's real entrepreneurial spirit." Anderson thought of his own privileged upbringing, his complete lack of practical skills. If his family's wealth disappeared, could he, like these hawkers, fend for himself? A wave of humility washed over him. "And don't forget, Singapore's food safety regulations are actually very strict," Auntie added. "Hawkers all need licenses, regular hygiene checks. Looks like a street stall, but every procedure is followed. Otherwise, if someone complains, we're in big trouble. The fines are heavy." Another customer chimed in. "Yeah, and our healthcare system is good. If you really get food poisoning, seeing a doctor won't cost you an arm and a leg, unlike some countries." These comments made Anderson rethink his perception of Singapore. He'd seen it as a small, efficient city-state, perhaps lacking the depth of larger nations. But he was now seeing elements that London, with all its grandeur, sometimes lacked. A dynamic street culture, genuine human connection, and a fierce, understated resilience. Your London hawker centers, though clean and orderly, always feel like something is missing, Xiao Jie mused. Singapore's hawker centers, messy as they seem, that chaos, it creates a unique charm. And Singaporeans? So friendly, The hawkers will chat with customers, share their stories. "That's just how we Singaporeans are," the hawker said, smiling. "Doing business isn't just about making money, it's about making friends. Many customers come here not just for the oyster omelette, but to chat, to catch up on life. This human connection, this warmth, that's Singapore's most precious thing." Anderson finished his omelette, grudgingly admitting it was the best thing he'd eaten in Singapore. The elaborate, expensive meals at fine dining establishments felt soulless in comparison. This humble street food, however, possessed a depth of flavor, a character that was unforgettable. "Boss," Anderson finally managed, his voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Can I ask you a question?" "Go on, young man," the hawker replied, still smiling. "You've been doing this for so long. Have you never thought of opening a proper restaurant? A brick-and-mortar place?" The hawker shook his head. "Thought about it, yes. But then I decided it wasn't necessary. A shop means paying high rent, maybe 20,000 a month, renovation, hiring staff, initial investment in the millions. And then you have to operate every single day. The pressure is immense. The way I am now, I can rest when I want, travel when I want. My life is free. And hawker centers, they have high foot traffic. You don't worry about business. If you open a standalone shop and the location is bad, nobody comes. Hawker centers are different. People come to browse, they see something good, they stop to buy. That's the advantage. Anderson nodded, beginning to understand. Not everyone desired endless expansion. Sometimes, small and beautiful was its own form of success. Look over there, the Papia hawker, the uncle pointed. He's been doing it for over 20 years too. Only works 3 hours a day, sells out, and closes. But he still earns 15–20,000 a month. His life is better than many office workers, I tell you. Really? Is that true? Anderson asked, wide-eyed. Of course it's true. The regular customer nearby interjected. Many Singaporean hawkers are serious moneymakers. We just don't go around boasting about it. It's more practical to make a fortune quietly. Just then, a couple of foreign tourists approached, attempting to order in broken English. The hawker, without missing a beat, smoothly switched to fluent English, explaining his menu. Anderson was surprised. The hawker's English was remarkably good. How do you speak such good English? Anderson asked, genuinely curious. Doing business, right? The hawker replied, shrugging slightly. Got to communicate with customers. More and more foreign tourists come to Singapore now. We need to learn to introduce our food in English. And my daughter, she studies overseas. We video call and speak English. Gradually, I learned. Anderson realized his earlier assumption, that hawkers were uneducated, simple folk, was deeply flawed. They possessed street smarts, adaptability, and a willingness to learn that often surpassed many white-collar workers in London. And you know what, Anderson? Xiao Jie said. Many Singaporean hawkers have an entrepreneurial mindset. They develop new products, observe market trends, figure out ways to attract customers. Many of the viral food trends actually start in hawker centers. The hawker nodded. Exactly. My oyster omelette recipe, it's my own gailan, improved version. Bigger oysters, unique sauce. Everyone who tries it says it's good. That's my competitive edge. Anderson suddenly recalled his father's frequent lectures about the importance of a core competitive advantage in business. These seemingly humble hawkers understood it and implemented it, perhaps even better than some large corporations. So, young man, the hawker asked, a gentle smile on his face, have your views on Singapore changed? Anderson paused, then nodded, looking the hawker squarely in the eye. Very much. I was ignorant. I only saw the surface, never truly understood Singapore. Now I see it small, yes, but incredibly vibrant. And Singaporeans have their own philosophy of life. They know how to live. Good to know, the hawker said, patting Anderson's shoulder lightly. Young people, right? A bit of arrogance is normal. What's important is that you can admit your mistakes, and you can learn. For you to humble yourself and listen to us little people today, that's already very impressive. Around them, murmurs of agreement rose. Anderson felt a strange lightness, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. This experience, he realized, was more valuable than any fancy dinner or five-star hotel. Boss? Anderson asked, a new thought striking him. You said you earn 300,000–400,000 a year. Do you pay taxes? The hawker laughed. Of course, la. We operate legally, have business registration, pay our taxes every year. Even though we're hawkers, we fulfill our obligations. And Singapore's tax system is quite fair. Xiao Jie added. Unlike some countries where taxes are ridiculously high, here, as long as you operate legally and pay your taxes, you can do business with peace of mind. This surprised Anderson. He'd assumed hawkers might try to evade taxes, but they were all legitimate businesses. It spoke to a more robust and inclusive system than he had imagined. And the Singaporean government even has support measures for small businesses, the hawker continued, like youth entrepreneurship loans, hawker training courses, all to help small bosses like us. Really? The government helps hawkers? Anderson asked, astonished. Of course, la, Auntie exclaimed. The government knows hawker centers are a Singaporean TUSA special characteristic, so they take management and development seriously. Sometimes the regulations are strict, but it's for protecting both consumers and hawkers. Anderson began to think that Singapore's social systems might be far more mature than he'd previously thought. Despite its smaller size compared to England, in terms of public welfare and support, Singapore was doing very well. Just then, a stylish young woman walked up, greeting the hawker in Hokkien, a local dialect. The hawker replied, and they chatted animatedly. Anderson, though he didn't understand the words, felt the warmth of their interaction. "She's a regular customer," the hawker explained to Anderson. "She's been buying oyster omelette from me since she was in secondary school. Now she works at a tech company, but she still comes back often. She's used to the taste." "Wow, what a connection!" Anderson exclaimed. "Yeah, la. When you do business long enough, customers become friends," the hawker smiled. "Some customers, I even attended their weddings. That's the human connection Singaporeans value." This long-term, emotional bond was rare, Anderson realized. In London restaurants, the relationship between customer and owner was largely transactional. And you know what else, Anderson? Xiao Jie pointed out. Singapore's hawker culture also drives the entire tourism industry. Foreigners who visit Singapore, don't they all want to go to a hawker center? It's become Singapore's calling card. Exactly, Auntie agreed. We hawkers, we're also contributing to Singapore's tourism. We let foreigners see the good side of Singapore, let them take good impressions back home. Anderson reflected on his own past impressions of Singapore, largely gleaned from news or online articles. He had rarely engaged with the everyday life of the city-state. This day, however, had opened his eyes to a vibrant, warm, and deeply human Singapore. "Boss, I really need to apologize," Anderson said, his voice earnest. "What I said earlier was out of line. I was wrong. I shouldn't have used my own standards to judge others, and I certainly shouldn't have looked down on someone's profession." The hawker waved a dismissive hand. "Never mind, young man. Young people, right? A bit of pride is normal. What's important is that you can admit your mistakes. And you've probably learned a lot today, no?" Xiao Ji grinned. "Not just eaten good food, but learned a lot too." Anderson nodded. "Really, I've learned so much. I used to be so full of myself, thinking because my family had money, I could look down on others. But now I know, truly respectable people are those who work hard and strive on their own." "Well said," the surrounding customers applauded. "And I also understand," Anderson continued, "that success isn't just one definition. It's not just about earning a lot of money or running a huge company. Like you, boss, doing what you love, earning enough, and still maintaining your quality of life, that's also success. And maybe a higher level of success." The hawker nodded, a look of profound satisfaction on his face. "Young man, for you to think like that, it means you've truly grown up. Many people spend their whole lives chasing more, and in the end, they lose the meaning of life." "Exactly, la," Auntie added. "Money is enough as long as you can use it. Most important is to be happy. If you earn a lot but are unhappy every day, what's the point?" These words plunged Anderson into deep thought. He thought of his father, successful in business, yet seemingly never truly happy, perpetually burdened by work. Was that the life he truly wanted for himself? "How old are you, young man?" the hawker asked. 25, Anderson replied. 25, still young, the hawker mused. "Now is the time to think about what kind of life you truly want. Don't be bound by family expectations, and don't be limited by society's standards. Find what you truly want to do, and work hard for it. That's what's most important." The hawker's words resonated deeply. Anderson realized this seemingly ordinary hawker possessed a profound wisdom, not from books, but forged in the crucible of life. "Boss, can I have your contact details?" Anderson asked, his tone respectful. "If I come to Singapore again, I definitely want to come back and see you." "Of course," the hawker replied jovially, handing him a business card. Anderson looked at it, the stall's name, phone number, and social media handles. The hawker even had an online presence. "You have a Facebook page?" Anderson asked, surprised. "Of course, la," the hawker chuckled. "Doing business now, you must keep up with the times. I have Facebook, Instagram, and a WhatsApp business account. Customers can order online and pick up directly. And we're on food delivery platforms too," Auntie chimed in. "Yeah, even though we pay commission, it reaches more customers, so business is better." Anderson realized these hawkers, though in a traditional trade, were anything but old-fashioned. They embraced technology, understood digital marketing, often better than many young professionals he knew. "Singaporean hawkers are truly amazing, la," Xiao Jie declared proudly. "We don't just preserve tradition, we constantly innovate. That's Singapore's competitive edge." Anderson nodded, utterly convinced. He pulled out his phone, liked the hawker's Facebook page, and left a comment about how much he'd learned. "All right, time's getting late," the hawker said. "You guys should go explore the other stalls. Remember to eat more and truly feel Singapore's food culture." "Okay, boss, thank you." Anderson bowed, a genuine, heartfelt gesture this time. As he walked away, he glanced back at the busy figure behind the sizzling griddle. The hawker seemed to have grown taller, not physically, but in stature, in the quiet strength of his convictions, his passion for his work, his love for life. "So?" Xiao Jie asked. "Has your impression of Singapore changed now?" "Changed too much," Anderson sighed, genuinely amazed. "I was truly a frog in a well, only seeing my own tiny corner of the sky. Today, I've learned so much." "That's good then," Xiao Jie smiled. "Singapore might be small, but we are very vibrant. I hope you'll tell your friends about your experience today. Let more people know the real Singapore." "I definitely will," Anderson promised. They continued to walk through the bustling hawker center, but this time, Anderson no longer viewed his surroundings with disdain. Instead, he absorbed the atmosphere with a newfound appreciation. He bought chicken rice, teh tarik, satay, each bite a revelation. He discovered that when you truly opened yourself to an experience, these seemingly ordinary foods possessed a unique magic. "You've changed, Anderson," Xiao Jie observed, a gentle smile on his face. "You're much nicer now than when you first arrived." "Am I?" Anderson laughed, a little embarrassed. "Maybe it's because I've shed that pointless sense of superiority." "Yeah la," Xiao Jie affirmed. "In life, it's important to be humble, to respect others. No matter who they are or what job they do, everyone deserves respect." Anderson nodded, resolved to remember this lesson. He also decided that when he returned to London, he would have a serious conversation with his father. He would share his experiences, his evolving thoughts. Perhaps he could choose a different path, one not necessarily dictated by family legacy, but by what truly resonated with him. The lights of Newton Food Center continued to twinkle, the crowds ebbed and flowed, and the air remained fragrant, with countless culinary delights. Anderson took a deep breath, imprinting the moment in his memory. He knew this evening would be a significant turning point in his life. The hawker, meanwhile, remained diligently at his stall, preparing plate after plate of his famous oyster omelette, serving one customer after another. He didn't know he had changed a young man's worldview that day, and perhaps he didn't care. For him, perfecting each oyster omelette, treating each customer with care, that was his life's value. Singapore's hawker centers were truly magical places. Here, everyone was equal. Whether you were a privileged scion or an office worker, driving a luxury car or riding a local bus, everyone gathered for the same simple purpose: to enjoy good food, to enjoy life, to enjoy this unique Singaporean culture. And perhaps that was Singapore's most endearing, most precious quality of all.